What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the OBR Prospect Spotlight. I am your host, Jacob. You can find me on X at Roachism13. Happy to have you here on the OBR streaming network. Please make sure you've hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up there on YouTube. Helps us out a ton. Make sure you check out the OBR.com. We've got a lot of great content going on over there. And right now, our 75% off an annual membership sale is going on. So you want to go check that out and get in on all the VIP benefits we got going on over there. Today, I've got a special episode for you guys. We're going to go triple live mock draft with two of my favorite Browns draft people that I have interacted with on the social medias and whatnot. And I'm just going to get right on into it. So I'm going to bring on Bill Sparks and Dan Sykes. How we doing, guys?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, guys. How we doing?
We got a triple mock draft here. We just ate a bunch of turkey. I think we're set to have a good time. So the three of us are going to use three different mock draft simulators, give you guys kind of a different view. I got an NFL mock draft database, and the reason I like that, it's what I use on my written mocks for the OBR. I like it because they kind of try to make a consensus board a little bit and take a lot of different big boards from around and average them out and try to give you kind of, I think, a more accurate simulation. But sometimes things turn out the way Pro Football Networks does it or PFF Simulator. So Bill's going to have Pro Football Network Simulator and Dan will have PFF's Mock Draft Simulator, and we will go through that. So we got a lot to cover in a little bit of time. So I'm going to kick this thing off, and we're going to go Bill, Dan, me. So Bill, you are on the clock.
All right. So I'm going to hit enter solo draft. I'm going to dive in here. I've got a couple of things that if I'm Cleveland, I'm looking at. So obviously we entertain any sort of trade offers that are going to come through depending on what we get and depending who's available on the board. In this scenario, I'm going to take a look and I'm going to be very open and honest. It looks like the guy I want at number 8 is still there. So I'm going to pass on both of these offers. And with the 8th overall selection, Cleveland's going to select Luther Burden, a guy I've compared to Percy Harvin, and is going to be basically Elijah Moore juiced up on steroids.
Can't argue with that.
No, neither can I. Short, sweet, to the point. I love it. I love that. That's awesome. Luther Burden, with the way Jerry Jeudy's emerging, if Luther Burden can be that guy, that would be a lot of fun next year. All right, Dan, you're on the clock.
Okay, so so I have the PFF version of this mock. So I did have to kind of go in a little bit early here and rearrange some of those draft picks because their picks for the Browns are wildly off. So I did preset that up. And so here we are, we're sitting at pick number 8. And let's see who all we've got. We do have Luther Burden still available. We have Kelvin Banks, who we really like. Josh Simmons, who is still way up here. For whatever reason they have him this high, I'm not sure. But excellent tackle. I am going to go ahead and look at what trades are available. Looks like we could either drop down to 16, 32, 48. Of those, 16 is the only one that is palatable for me. Let's see what we can get out of these guys, because I do like the idea of trading down. I want to try to acquire the guy that we need up top while still trying to add as much talent as we can in the top 100. So let's see what we can get out of this. If we go 8 for 16, yeah, of course I'll take that. 80, 100, boy, but they were really taking a big drop down here between 60 to 80. That's a long way down. Can we get all that? I don't know if we'll get all that.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny because sometimes PFF will give it to you, but it's like, will they actually give that to me?
Right. Yeah. And well, especially it's also the Rams you're trading down with. So Les Snead's going to be like F them picks anyway. So
that's true.
You probably could get all of that.
Let's give it a try. Let's see if we can pick up a second next year and pick up the 80 and 100. Let's just see if they take it. They took it.
Let's do it.
They took it. So yeah, we got an extra second round next year, which that's a big old bonus. So there's not really much of a secret as to what my motivations are in this draft. I feel the Browns' number one priority. We have to solidify the offensive line. And I think the key to that is you have to have a guy with traits who can solidify and lock down that offensive left tackle position. Now we're blessed in that we have DeJuan Jones, who's looking really good, but I am terrified of his injury. So he's been hurt multiple times already. I want to add a guy who has some versatility. And so we have Ariante Ursary here, excellent tackle out of Minnesota. But I am looking at Mr. Wyatt Milam here. This is a guy who pretty much does it all. He is a big old West Virginia farm boy, bad dude. So if you look down here at his stats, in the last 2 years, he has not given up a single sack or a hit on his quarterback. In the last 3 years, he has given up 1 hit, 0 sacks. And he's not playing jokers either. He is playing high quality talent. So we've talked about this guy some before. I'm going to draft him. I'm going to lock this guy in because even if he's not playing at left tackle, he can play right tackle. He can play inside at guard, and he's going to bring bad intentions. So we're going to add this guy to the roster.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew that was coming.
No secrets from me. Right down the middle of the plate, 90 plus mile an hour fast.
And there's not a problem with that if you're very in a situation like that. Like you have no problem with that. All right, I'm on the board here. Number 8, myself. I'm gonna skip even looking at the trade offers because I'm writing this up for the OBR right now and having the same scenario, but I want to do it here. If Mason Graham is on the board when the Browns come on the board, the defensive tackle from Michigan, the idea of Dalvin Tomlinson, because I think Tomlinson's here next year at least, Dalvin Tomlinson next to him. Eventually it's him and Mike Hall in there, and Myles Garrett, and I still love Alex Wright and Okoronkwo and some of the other pieces. Isaiah McGuire is playing with out of his absolute mind right now. You put in a guy like Mason Graham, who is a complete defensive tackle. He will anchor against the run. He will eat blocks, keep guys like JOK clean to make crazy tackles for loss. And his explosiveness at 325 pounds off the line of scrimmage is asinine. Like, you should not be able to do that. He's just, I think he's, they've got him at 6. He's a top 5 talent in this class, maybe even top 2 or 3 in this class. And he's a complete all-around player. And I think it just makes a strength of the Browns even better. So if he's there on the board, I sprint the Mason Graham pickup.
Can't argue with that. I do like him as a player. He would be an excellent ad.
All right. That means
Billy. I completely agree. He reminds me a lot of Chris Jones as well. So I debated Mason Graham as well. So coming back on the board here in round 2, there were a couple of offers that came in. Looking at the talent there's on the board here, there's a couple of guys that I like. This offer from Miami, sliding down 7 spots and picking up a 3rd round from Carolina in 2026, who could potentially still be terrible. It is Carolina after all. I'm going to take that and I'm going to slide down a little bit. And I've got a couple more offers that came in, but rather than continue to move down, the big needs for me is obviously, like what's already been hit on, looking at that left tackle spot and just tackle depth in general. Dan talked about one of the guys that I'm looking at here, Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. He is right there in competition for left tackle 1, which it's pretty crazy when we think about that. But if he's still here at 46, I think he's a fringe first round guy. I'm pulling the trigger on Ursary right there.
I'm sure I'll be live streaming the draft as I do every year. I would lose my shit. Especially if you trade down, add a 3rd round pick from Carolina in 2026 and still get Ursary, I would shit my pants.
Yeah, that would be that's an absolute no-brainer. Sprint that pick up to the podium. Yeah. Right, you take them and then you dance as you go away.
You're on the board.
Yeah. So I'm really torn here because there's a lot of things that we can do with this pick. We've locked down my one must-have, which is a strong left tackle candidate. And here we can start getting a little tricky. I like the idea of adding a cornerback. It is impossible to have too many cornerbacks in the NFL. I really like the idea of adding defensive line depth. We have to fix both lines. We have to add to both lines. We have to make that strength an even stronger aspect of the team. And we also have been looking at some of this tight end talent that's available in this draft as well. So, and we've got a couple of options here. I've got Walter Nolan, who I like a lot there, coming out of Ole Miss. Super talented guy. He's had a couple of little misfires, not maybe developed all of his talent. This year, he's looking pretty good. But, he's been pretty darned solid there. There are some other guys that I think we might be able to target a little bit later that I think might be decent options. I'm going to throw myself a curveball. I'm going to go cornerback. I'm going to go Jihadi Barron out of Texas. This is a guy with a lot of skills. He has some versatility. He can play inside. He can play outside. He can play zone. He can play man. I think that he would fit inside of our scheme and add some tools to our system that would work well overall. So I'm going to go ahead and add him up.
Yeah, yep.
I love that one because especially as well, last year he played safety for Texas as well. So obviously, if you look to move on from Thornhill, you could even put him back there with Delpit as well.
Yeah, and that's what I love about his versatility. I am really big on guys who can do more than one thing. I don't like single taskers. I like guys who are good at football, bring a lot of versatility, and give Jim Schwartz some options to play with.
All right, that puts me back on the board as second round. I have an interesting on the clock. I said on the board. An interesting trade offer to go from 39 to 55 for picks 77 and 148. I actually kind of like where my board has fallen, so I'm not going to do this right now. If Savania is there, as he is on my board right now, Jonah Savania, who has played guard and tackle for Arizona, he's a really interesting one because I've seen, a lot of talk about these tackles needing to move to guard. Like Will Campbell, they talked about that with Will Campbell and even Kelvin Banks, Emory Jones, the right tackle for LSU. You got Wyatt Milam's gotten some of that buzz too. Some people think because of the shorter arms, he's a guard. Jonah Savania, I think he is best suited as a guard, but I think he can hang as a tackle too. And I'm going to draft him as a guard, but I'm going to draft him as get him into camp and see where he excels. So I'm okay with the guard moniker, but I would absolutely start in training or in mini camp and then in mandatory camp and stuff like that. I'm going to let him take some, cuts at being a tackle first and foremost. I just think he's got all the physical tools. I think he moves particularly well, but I do think he's got an attitude, and I love dudes that got big mauler attitudes and that are versatile, and you're going to find a place for Savania to play. And if, like Dan said, we're rebuilding this offensive line, we're rebuilding the trenches. So I'll take Savania here and look to get a guy that's either going to fill one of my tackle spots or fill one of my guard spots. And I think he's a refined player with his technique that steps in right away and plays right away. If you end up having the need for wherever it is, but I think he can come in and play tackle, play guard, but either way, I think he's a technician. It's kind of mean mauler attitude, and I think the Browns could use that.
I love it. As someone,
good.
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, am I up? Oh no. Oh, sorry.
No,
I like the pick. I mean, he's he's strong in a box. Good short range power. His feet sometimes look a little slow to me, but super thick, super powerful. I think he's a guy who can play at the next level. Definitely can play guard, and he does well enough on the edge that I think that there is reason to think that he might be able to develop and hang there at right tackle.
Yep. No, I agree. I'm a member of the Jonah Savania fan club. I have a first round grade on him, and I think he sticks outside at right tackle. The big thing when I did my scouting report for him, I wrote it, if you see him fighting a bear in the forest, help the bear.
He is a tenacious, strong dude. Yeah, he has outrageous short range power. No question.
And I always, when I talk about this as a Browns guy and I talk about nasty mauler attitude, I always just label it as a Wyatt Teller mindset. And he has the Wyatt Teller mindset. And if you are like, hey, he's going to be my right tackle next to Wyatt Teller, you're just going to run the ball right all year. You're gonna have Wyatt Teller and Salvania just paving the way on the right side, and no matter who the running back is, you're just gonna pound the rock. All right, Bill, you're on the clock, man.
All right. So as we sit here with pick 70, there's a couple of things that I want to look at, but I've already attacked the two biggest needs. There are two guys on the board still that I think are going to be long gone by this pick, but since other teams have passed on them, I'm going to look at them. And it's going to be look at getting a defensive tackle that plays next to Mike Hall in the future.
Yeah.
This guy, I think, has a tendency to slip based on his health concerns that we've seen, blood clots in his lungs, but it's the godfather, Dante Corleone from Cincinnati. I mean, 6'2", 318. This guy plays well with power. If we get him at pick 70, when I have him in the top 50, I think it's a slam dunk, no-brainer. We're going to run that card up.
That's a lot of beef. That's what I'll say about him. That's a lot of beef in the middle of the line, and you can never have enough beef in the middle of your on either side of the line. In the inside, you can never have enough of that. I love that pick. All right, Dan.
Absolutely.
Okay. So here we are at 72.
Corleone.
I don't know if you guys can see this little portion of my board right over here.
Yeah.
But
they took Fannin right.
Oh, come on.
Oh,
because
no.
that's where I was going. I really wanted to add this guy. This is a guy that I would love to add to the team. I think that he is an exceptional tweener between wide receiver and tight end. I think that he is an instantaneous matchup nightmare for anybody. Being able to play him along with David Njoku, we would be running 12 personnel 90% of the time because this guy can play in line. He doesn't have, the sand in the pants to be an absolute terror as an inline blocker, but he's feisty. He will get after it. He works. And he can split out. He can run wide. He can go into motion. He can play out of the backfield. I'd love to add this guy, but he's not an option. So we're moving on. We are moving on. So we all want to add some defensive line talent here, right? I'm really intrigued by Jalen Royals. I like this guy. I like him a good bit. I think that he would be a nice add to our wide receiver room. He is one of those guys who is good at football. We have Deion Walker out of Kentucky, huge body defensive lineman. I like him a lot. We have Drew Aller, which is a quarterback that I like a good bit. I'm not sure if he's going to come out in this draft. I think there is some cause to think that he might stay in college for a year. Xavier Watts, safety that I really like. But I'm going to come all the way down here to Oregon, Derek Harmon. This is a huge body defensive lineman, 6'5", 310, excellent length, very productive. He's been playing at a very high level. He has a little bit of inside-outside versatility. He currently has a 76 run defense grade, 6.9% run stopping rate, 17% pass rush win rate. I cannot pass on this guy. We're going to add him. We're going to put him inside, and we're going to ride that pony.
I think he's insane.
I think he's a good ad. So, and I think he's a guy who has the frame and the physicality and the versatility to be a strong contributor pretty much out of the box. And I think that he, I think that he has the chance to stick in the NFL for a long time as a highly productive interior defensive lineman.
Would you look at that? Right there on my board, Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end from Bowling Green. This dude,
you're not going to take him, are you?
Oh,
yeah. It's there. It's a conversation.
I tell you, he is the entire offense at Bowling Green, passing wise. I think they got some good running backs, but in terms of the pass games, the entire offense, he's got 112 targets this year. In 11 games, he's their entire. Everybody knows he's their offense, and they cannot stop him. They cannot, and I know part of that has to do he's playing in the MAC. But the things that stand out? Two of his biggest games this year were against Penn State and Texas A&M. He had massive gains against Penn State and Texas A&M. So you talk about but he plays in the MAC. Yeah, well, he's been that guy in every game. He's got 1,294 yards, 14 yards per carry, nine touchdowns. He has one drop on 112 targets, one drop. He's number one in the country in forced missed tackles for a tight end at 29 forced missed tackles. He's got 7 deep catches, which is third, for 276 yards, which is second. And he's got 10 contested catches. He is an athletic freak. PFF has him at a 97.2 receiving grade. This dude, if you want to attack the seam, Harold Fannin Jr. Like, I think he's a decent blocker. Some people want to knock his blocking, and that's probably he's a little bit smaller. Like, people are like, well, some of the press man coverage can be tricky for him. He's got 4.01 yards per route run. And he's going to be next to David Njoku behind David Njoku on the roster. I know he went to a MAC school, but he's absolutely dominated. And I think if he's there at 70, the value is just tremendous.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think this is Fannin Jr. is a guy that we need to talk about, not only winning the Mackey Award this year for the best tight end, but probably the Bolitnikoff for the best receiver, because I believe he leads the nation in receiving yards, if I'm not mistaken.
He probably does. He's got almost 1,300 yards. So
yeah. All right. So it looks like I'm on the clock. So we added beef with the last draft pick, and now we're going to come back. I want to attack this defensive back room between corner and safety, just because with Ward's health in question, potentially moving on from Newsome in the next couple of years, you got to add it. I'm going to add a guy that has been clocked running a 4.28 40-yard dash during his time in college.
That's quick.
Damani Jackson from Alabama. He's got everything you want from an explosive athlete, good technique. There are questions, obviously, around his health, as well as sometimes he gives up less leverage and press. But I think we get him in this defensive back room, allowing some of these guys, as well as you could use him on special teams, kick return and punt return. Let's throw a 4.28 40 back there and watch him take some kicks to the house at Huntington Bank.
I love it. All right, Dan, you're on the board. Clock.
Okay, so here we are. We're at pick 80-ish. So I'm definitely kind of stuck here because I'm not really sure how I want to deal with this. We've added a lot of the positions that I think are the most important to add. I want to look at running back here. A lot of the guys that I really love at running back are already gone. I do like DJ Giddens, Kyle Monagai, I really like. We've got Devin Neal, who's way down here still. So we've got some guys that I do like, but nobody that I'm like super, super pumped about. Some of the guys that we were talking about a little bit earlier are still here. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with a quarterback of the future here because I think we're at a point where we can add this guy.
Yeah.
And, we can let him cook for a year maybe. But I like Drew a lot in that, big prototypical frame, big time arm talent. He can make just about any throw, maybe one of the stronger arms in the country. Some people have criticized his processing skills, but I think that he's a little bit hurt in that he only has really one guy who is an elite level target, and that is his tight end. He doesn't really have a lot of help outside at wide receiver, but the guy is still putting up huge numbers right now. And he's exceptionally young. So he still can't go and buy a beer. And he has played a lot of football there at Penn State. I think that he would be a good ad for us if he does come out, but we don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and add him at this pick because I think he's the right thing to do.
I'll let you, since you added a 3rd round pick, that was the added pick. Go ahead and make pick 93 here too.
Woohoo! Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let's see what we've got left at 93. So this is a spot where we have definitely a lot of options. There is no secret to the fact that I am an offensive line guy. I really want to add as much versatility and power there as we can. And one of my man crush offensive lineman is available here. Armaj Reed Adams. He is an offensive guard out of Texas A&M. He is a big, thick bodied, bad intention dude, 6'5", 330. He is one of the more aggressive interior linemen that I've seen on tape this year. Excellent short range power, ability to work off combo blocks, get into the second level, can pull and get outside. But he is He is just a devastating inline blocker, and I want to add him to play next to next to Wyatt Milam or whoever our center of the future is there, because I think he's going to add us a lot of utility and a lot of power. I think he can start day one.
I'm with you on that. Let's go. There we go. All right. I'm on the board here, and Ollie Gordon's hanging around at 94. And I think this is you could go a couple of different ways in this draft, because I think the running back class is just so good. Like, I think it's just so talented that you're going to get a guy like Ollie Gordon. And you can see some of the other names on here. I don't understand why RJ Harvey is 163, why Monungai is 171, because those guys can play.
Yeah,
I like those.
Mm-hmm.
But Ollie Gordon's got that size, speed, power balance. I think he lacks an elite speed, and he's not super explosive in getting to his top speed, but he has good vision. He's patient. He can run with power. If you underestimate his speed, he can kind of run away from you. And in this scenario, I'm kind of thinking of Wyatt Teller and Jonas Savaiinaea as my right guard and right tackle of the future. Rather they keep Conklin or not, we'll see what happens with that situation. He could save them some money if they move on. I don't think they necessarily will. And Savaiinaea, maybe he becomes your left guard or something of that line. I don't know. But if you got Wyatt Teller and either Jack Conklin or Savaiinaea on the right side, you want to run some power, some really take it to you, smack you in the mouth football. Taking Ollie Gordon at that pick, I think, would get that done.
Yeah,
very patient. Like I said, sometimes too patient, but speed, size, power combination. It's great.
Love it. So back on the clock here, and in here at pick 106, same thing. I'm looking at running back as well, but I've got an offer from Buffalo to slide down 4 picks, pick up 183. I'm going to take that because there are 2 guys on the board still that I think could be there in 4 picks. And shockingly enough, they both are. One you just went with, Jake, in Ollie Gordon. But I'm going to go with Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. This guy is a bruiser, old school running back. Doesn't have the super elite speed that you'd look for. But if I compare him to a player, he reminds me of Jamal Lewis, Ravens, Browns, just bruising, old, hard-nosed. I think he could be a backup to Nick Chubb if we re-sign him. If we don't, I think he could be a lead back and a running back by committee scenario as well. So I'm going to take that one there.
All right. Dan, you're back on the clock.
Oh, my goodness. So I'm back up. So, okay, we got pick 100 here. We've got, we got a lot of options. So Taj Brooks is a guy that I was actually thinking about, but you just took him. So I would be tempted to take him here, but in the interest of not doubling up, I'm going to look around a little bit. Now, I really wanted to add that tight end a little bit earlier. I feel like I've added a good bit at on the offensive line. I've gotten us a good, solid pick there on the defensive line. I want to add that pass catcher that we didn't get there at tight end. And I'm going to look here at Jalen Noel, wide receiver out of Iowa State. This is a guy who is super versatile. He's not the hugest guy ever, 5'11", 200. He has been very productive this year, and he's one of those guys who has been most of the offense at Iowa State, and has just been productive the whole way around. Good receiving yards overall. He is almost at 1,000. He has some inside outside versatility. He can run out of the slot. He can run in wide. And I think that he would be a nice addition to the wide receiver room at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like that.
Oh, yeah,
all
I
right.
love that one.
On to day 3 for me. I know Dan likes to kick back against me when I bring this up, but I like Parker Brailsford quite a bit, the center from Alabama, and I think you can get him at 106. Like,
you could probably get him at 150.
Yeah. Well, they're not on the board again until 186 unless you do the trade back and add one. I know, but he's undersized. He might bulk up to 300 pounds for the combine when he eats a bunch of peanut butter sandwiches and adds on a little bit of size. But I think he's such a great athlete, and he has the frame to add a little bit more strength and power. I think he'll get more strength and power just in an NFL strength and conditioning program in the offseason. Like, I think that's kind of where you go with him. But I just love the movement skills and the way that the Browns and Kevin Stefanski loves to pull and move guys and get guys in the open field, run some of them, the wide zone stuff and the screen game and things like that. I think Parker Brailsford would be perfect for that kind of that role, because I think he's just a fantastic athlete on the interior. If he can just add a little bit more power and strength as a run blocker, I think you have a guy that can become a starting center in the NFL and do so early on. So you got Savanaia that's either going to take a guard spot or a tackle spot. And then I think center, I'm going to want to take a true blue tackle again later in this draft, but I really think they have to really consider drafting 2025 starting center. And I think Brailsford is a very nice player to put in between some hulking guards, because he can move so well to help out the guards and pass protection and some things like that. But I just love betting on the athlete and the traits once we get on to day 3. And I think Parker Brailsford's got that, just lacking in that power department. All right. So that'll put Bill back on the clock.
All right. So here we are looking at pick 168. There's a guy here. I'm significantly higher on him than probably most of the draft community, just because I love his kick slide. I love his pass protection. Probably could play both tackle spots. In this case, I took Ursary earlier, so he's going to play my right tackle spot. But Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College,
Yes.
6'8", 309. Very good in pass protection. Big body guy. He's a sleeper on the board. And in this case, I've solidified both tackle spots. If Dewan chooses to return and we want to use him at the right tackle, we can. If we want to use him in terms of injury, he can be a swing tackle. So, but yeah, to get him here, I have a top 75 grade on Trapillo. So to get him here is just excellent value for me.
Yeah.
I can never argue against taking offensive linemen. Never.
Yeah. So, I just draft a whole bunch of them and figure out who sticks. Like,
yep.
Like, I'm okay with that strategy. I'm totally okay with it. Dan, you added another pick, so we'll have you do 109 and 167 here.
Okay, sounds good. So so what are we going to do here? We've got some excellent options. It's super tempting when you see guys like a Johnny Cornelius sitting here still. That's always tempting, but I've already loaded up on a lot of offensive linemen. Taj Brooks, I really would like him at running back, but we've already added him in one of our mocks. So I'm just going to start throwing out some stuff here that I think is interesting. Rod Moore is a guy at safety that I really like, has the ability to play deep, has some versatility. And as we've talked about, I really like adding versatile players, but he has that injury issue that makes me a little nervous. Jack Kaiser, strong linebacker out of Notre Dame, like him a lot. But I'm going to go as an answer to the center issue. I'm going to come at this at a little bit different direction. Luke Kendra out of Cincinnati, offensive guard, has the ability to play all 3 offensive interior line positions. I'm going to draft him. And I'm going to say that he is going to be a center project with the ability to play either of the other spots there at the interior offensive line. I think he's going to be a Swiss Army knife there for the interior of the line. And that gives me 3 guys that I think have starting utility starting next year. So I have 3 guys that I can now plug in there who can start working very quickly at the NFL level.
I misspoke earlier too, like an idiot, and forgot to mention Jonas Savanaia has played left tackle too.
Mm-hmm. He
has played both tackle and played guard. So you could think he's your left tackle, not just your right tackle. I just think he might be a little bit better on the right side if he plays tackle. But I just wanted to put that out there that I do that all the time. You get so many different offensive line prospects that I've watched that I confuse them in my head all the time. Oh, wait, Dan, you've got one more, don't you?
Oh, you wanted me to go ahead and go here at 167, didn't you?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, it's like, so yeah, this is so, okay. Yep. So, here's where I want to start filling in for some specific needs, right? I think that we need a safety pretty bad. I think that we're going to possibly need to be moving on from get a free safety there. I'm afraid Mr. Thornhill may not have the utility that we wanted. There's a couple of guys that I really like here. I like Jay Higgins, who's a linebacker out of Iowa. There's a couple of safeties coming out of Texas that I really like. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with Jay Higgins here. This is a guy, he's a linebacker out of Iowa, and these Iowa guys, they all have a type, right? These are usually all hard-nosed, lunch pail guys, bring a lot of attitude. This is a guy who has adequate size, 6'2", 232. He's not your typical linebacker thumper, but we don't usually like those guys anyway. We want guys who are a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more mobile. Mr. Higgins doesn't have blinding track speed, but he has excellent anticipation and excellent play speed. And I like that from him. The number one thing that I really dig about this guy, even though he's not maybe the best pass rusher, he can pass rush, he can play and run defense. But if you look right here, his coverage grade is a 93.7. And I want to look just a little bit deeper past the numbers here. And I want you to look down here and look at how much he plays slot as a guy who is that size, 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds. And he plays slot often enough that when you take that along with the fact that he has a 93 coverage grade, 4 interceptions, no touchdowns allowed, allowing a 39.4 passer rating, this guy's pass coverage skills as a linebacker are exceptional. He might be one of the best pass defending linebackers in the nation. And to have that kind of utility available at this point in the draft, this is an automatic pick. This is a guy who I think can come in and compete for playing time and play at a high level very early. And when you can add that sort of utility, that sort of passion, that sort of attitude at this point in the draft, I think he's a must take. He's a must draft. So I'm adding this guy to the roster.
Like it.
Love it.
I'm going to take a value pick here at 168. Antoine Powell-Ryland, the edge rusher from Virginia Tech, is a name that I keep coming back to, and I've heard a lot of people come back to his name on some other draft pods that I've listened to. You got a guy he's now at back-to-back double-digit sack seasons for Virginia Tech. No, he wasn't at Virginia Tech last year, was he?
I believe he was.
Was he? I know he transferred originally, but either way, you've got a guy that's coming off now back-to-back 10 sack seasons. He's got a 16.1% pass rush win rate this year for Virginia Tech. He's got strong hands and good hand counters, but I think he doesn't use his length super well. Like, I think he needs some refinement when it comes to like playing with leverage and actually using some of the tools that he has. And for a guy with like really nice tools, and I think he's got good pass rush moves, like multiple pass rush moves. I think when he's a run defender, he doesn't utilize his length properly and sometimes play with the leverage. And I think he could be a more impactful guy there. And he makes some pretty silly discipline issues in terms of lane and gap integrity. Like he gets a little over aggressive, but like he kind of reminds me of Devin Bush, where Devin Bush is going to guess on some plays and his athletic ability will help him make up for some of those things. But Devin Bush is going to guess at 100 miles an hour. And if he's right, he's going to blow the play up. I think that's Antoine Powell-Ryland as an edge rusher. Like sometimes he's just going to try to shoot a gap and be just so completely out of position. Other times he's going to shoot a gap, sack the quarterback in 2.5 seconds. And you're going to go, well, how the heck did he do that? And doing that at 168, like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Give me another young, talented pass rusher on this already talented as heck defensive line.
I love it. I think his size concerns from some people who've said he's too undersized to play edge. I think it's overblown. I think it's a guy. He's been productive at Virginia Tech, 22 sacks in the last 2 seasons. He was at Virginia Tech last year. I think this is a guy you just plug in there even on situational and just watch him pin his ears back in Schwartz's scheme.
He's 6'3", 250. I can live with that.
Yeah, I think that's big enough. We see these edge rushers who are pass rush specialists only, who can survive in the NFL at even smaller than that. But we as as a collective Browns group, right? We want those edge guys to usually be a little bit larger because we ask those guys to maintain edge integrity. But I think this is a guy who has the ability to step in, play well enough in that role while still being highly productive as a pass rusher.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so pick 183. I'm going to select a guy that I don't think will be here at 183. I think he's going to go significantly higher. He's rated as the second best center on my big board currently, and it's Jonah Monheim from USC. I mean, this guy is a technician and pass pro. He can play both tackle spots, guard spot. He is an offensive lineman in every sense of the word. I love his kick, slide, and pass sets. Like, you watch him step back, especially in guards, and it's just amazing. So in this scenario, I've landed all three, both tackles and a center, in the first 7 selections. So I think that would be a home run if they're able to get him here.
I really like that pick. Jake and I have talked a lot about that guy, actually, pretty early on in the draft process. Some of the things that I really like about him, he's super intelligent. He's got a really super high football IQ. He's a guy that USC trots out. They put him in front of the camera a lot. And when you see a program who takes a guy and puts him in front of the camera almost weekly, that says that that program has an incredible amount of faith in that person and their ability to present well for the program. You see him, this is his first year playing as a true center. He played left tackle for USC last year. And even as early on as a center, you saw him actively sitting down, getting into his spot there at center and calling the offensive line protections. You would see him communicating to other offensive linemen. This guy is an all tools guy, and he has super utility, good power, excellent pass blocker. The knocks on him are very small, and the upside, I think, is very strong. I think this is a great pick. Good for you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, man, you're on the clock, 182 as we start to wrap this thing up. We're going to have to go rapid fire. We're going long.
Okay, so so I've got some guys down here that I really like. I still want to add that safety. I rolled the dice, and I thought that one of 2 guys would be here. Either one I'd be happy with at this pick. Keon Saab out of Alabama. This is a guy who has had a terrible year. He was super high early on, and so they ended up he's not had a good year. I think that's because they're playing him more at cornerback than safety. I think that he's going to be a decent pick, but I'm going to actually go with Andrew Makuba out of Texas. This is a guy, super fast dude. I think he's like a 4.3 40 guy, 6 foot 190, big enough, excellent ball skills. He has the ability to play slot, has the ability to move out to corner in a pinch, but he has sideline to sideline speed and ability as a free safety. So that's where I want to go. I think that he can play pretty early on, but he has the tools to actually have an excellent ceiling and really develop into an excellent free safety at the NFL level.
All right, let's get this rolling. Okay, 183. I'm going to make it simple for here. I want some more speed. Barian Brown, the wide receiver from Kentucky. You're looking for a day 3 guy that probably ends up getting a little overdrafted because he's got that vertical stretch speed. He's 185. So you're going to talk about a smaller, not a guy that you expect to ever be like a super high volume guy, but you're not drafting a guy at 183 thinking he's going to be a volume number 1 wide receiver, especially early. So I'll take Barian Brown here and just add more speed for Jameis Winston. Ooh, I snuck that in.
Love it.
Snuck in the Jameis reference.
I love the Jameis reference. All right, so pick here 189. I'm going to get the developmental guy of the draft at quarterback. I think he's going to go back to school this season, but if he comes out 6'6", 230, runs a 4.4 40-yard dash, I'm just going to leave it at that. Has a cannon of an arm. Taylon Green from Arkansas. I think if I'm able to get him day 3 with those traits, he's a mold of clay. His mechanics break down when he's under pressure, but I think he gets in here. He sits behind Jameis for 25, and then in 26, battles it out with Jameis for QB1.
All right, Dan, hit us.
Okay, so we're going to go rapid fire. I didn't get my tight end earlier, so I'm going to actually go to tight end U. I'm going to go out to Iowa. I'm going to add Luke Lachey. This is a guy who has not had a great year, but he is an exceptional talent. I think that we can add him. He can add some utility early on, and I think given a year of extra growth and development, I think that he could be a solid inline tight end that has a little bit of utility as a pass catcher. So I'm going to go ahead and add him.
I like it. I'm going to add my quarterback as a just-in-case quarterback, and people that know me know I love Dylan Gabriel more than anybody else seems to in this class. I just think if you're going for you talk about the best quarterbacks this year and the rookies coming in are guys that have played a ton of football. Dylan Gabriel's played a ton of football. He's smart, he's accurate, and he's risk-adverse. I know he's small. That's why he's here at 189. But in terms of a rhythm and timing thrower that will operate within the confinements of the offense that he's given, I think you can't get much better at this point in the draft. And if something happens, you don't retain Jameis or Jameis gets hurt, I think Dylan Gabriel steps up and I think he's going to be an incredibly high-end backup in the NFL with the opportunity in the right system to be a starter. So I'll take the super experienced Dylan Gabriel.
Love it.
Nice pick.
Love it.
I just love him.
Picks 204 here. I'm going to go with a guy who I have significantly higher. I think he's going to be a top 100 guy just because he's going to test out of his mind at the combine. But J. Michael Sturdivant from UCLA, 6'3", 208, runs a 4.38 40-yard dash. He's got all the athletic traits you could want from a wide receiver. We already have Burden earlier, but I'm going to double down at wide receiver and just continue to add athletes to this roster.
Double down. I like it. Okay. So this is my last pick here. Because we moved up from some of those other picks. I want to take a kind of a developmental flyer here. And so what are we going to do? I'm going to go down here and look at what do we have available for somebody with traits. And there's a guy that I'm looking at here. We actually have a couple of pretty strong offensive tackle candidates here. I like Ernest Green down here. This is a guy who has had a terrible year at Georgia, but I think he's going to probably be a long time offensive guard on the next level and who can add some utility. I like Anthony Belton. He's a guy who big body, big frame. But the guy that I'm going to actually go on here is Holland Pierce out of Rutgers. This guy is a giant at 6'8", 344 pounds. Super, super long guy. Super long arms, super long legs. He is playing out of his mind this year. 85 pass rush, pass blocking grade, 81, 85 run blocking grade, 81 pass blocking grade, good zone, good gap, good true pass blocking win rates. And he just has traits at offensive left tackle that fit on an NFL level. So we don't know if this guy will actually develop, but he actually has the traits where he could become an NFL offensive left tackle. And to add that at this level and you hide him on the practice roster and see what happens to him over a year. I think that it's really hard to go wrong with this guy, and I'm going to add him to the roster just as a investing a pick next year. I think if you saw this guy come back, enter the transfer portal, and let's say he goes to Ohio State, if he plays a year at Ohio State, he's suddenly a first-round pick next year. So it's really hard for me to pass on him at this point in the draft.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. I really like Jalen Catalon, the safety from UNLV. Big physical guy that triggers downhill quickly, has good athleticism and speed, gets lost sometimes in man coverage and in space. But if you're looking for somebody that's going to come out of the back end and hit somebody and make an impact as a run game, I think Catalon's that guy. So I'll take Catalon at 204, and then
Nice
Bill,
pick.
hit me. Bill, I'll let you hit me with your last two, and then I'll make the last two, and we'll get out of here.
All right. So in this one, this late in the draft, I don't think he's going to be here, but I'm going to take a guy who can play both sides of the ball. It's not Travis Hunter this deep in the draft, but it's JJ Pegues from Ole Miss at defensive tackle, big body guy. And then you can also run him at fullback. He's got 6 rushing touchdowns for Ole Miss this season as fullback. So to be able to get that guy here this late, I'm going to easily jump on that one. And then with my final selection, I'm going to look at a tight end that has reportedly ran a 4.69 back in high school. He's a little underdeveloped because he hasn't had a whole lot of snaps, but John Michael Gillenborg from Wyoming. This is a guy that has special teams coverage ability. He can develop into a starting tight end. I think right now you stash him on the practice squad for a season, and then you come back next year and could be your tight end 2 or even potentially tight end 1 in some scenarios where Njoku's off the field.
And you can see here on the screen, that is Bill's draft right there. Let us know what you think of it. Dan, I will put yours on a screen in just a second after I do my 2 picks. All right, let's wrap this thing up. I'm going Chase Lunt here, the right tackle from UConn. I know I've already drafted 3 offensive linemen. Did I do 2? I did 2. So give me another offensive lineman, primarily a right tackle. I think it's just a dart throw with a guy that's played at UConn. I think he's better than what he's kind of getting.
I know where you're going. I know where you're going.
It's just I like Chase Lunt. I just do. I like him. We'll put him on the board there. My final pick here in the 6th round to pick 215. I like dart throws at corners. I think Quincy Riley is got some fun traits and some things here in the 6th round at corner. So I'll finish it up there. We'll let this thing go out. I'll put mine here on the screen for you guys. Oh, that's why it's going so slow. I selected normal and not fast in between picks. I normally have the fast one on so that I don't have to wait for all these picks to play out.
I like your pick of Lunt. I like him as a he's a strong all-around offensive lineman. The only reason that I maybe don't consider him more seriously personally is because he kind of falls outside of those age guidelines. He's a little bit older guy, but I think he's a guy who can come in and add utility and play pretty soon. And to get a guy like that at this point in the draft, that's a no-brainer.
So I'm going to go Mason Graham, the defense tackle, Jonas Avenaya that can play both tackle or guard positions, Harold Fana and Ollie Gordon. You can see these guys across the board. That is my draft for the day. Dan's draft's going to look weird because he had to make some manual trades to get the right picks. So you can't completely go with that, but you can look at his players here on your screen. Oh, man, lots of beef.
Oh yeah, love it. Just big buddy guys
I'm all
everywhere.
over the beef. There's just beef everywhere. I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, man, just load up on talent. Guys, I thank you so much for joining me here. We're going to wrap this thing up. Please make sure you subscribe. Their X accounts are on the screen. Please make sure you follow these guys. Guys, appreciate you so much. We'll get, I can't wait to do this again as time goes on. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Check out theobr.com. We'll see you guys again next week. As always, go Browns.